Diplomatic relations between the Republic of Albania and the United States of America were re-established on March 15, 1991, after an interruption of 52 years. The diplomatic relations between the two countries were first established on July 28, 1922. The Embassy of Argentina in Washington, D.C. is located in the busy neighborhood of DuPont Circle, in a house originally built for George Franklin Hough, a Republican congressman from Pennsylvania. The Argentine government purchased the building on February 20, 1913, from Henrietta Hough, who decided to sell the house after her husband's death in 1912. The Embassy of Australia showcases the very best in Australian design, materials and architectural excellence thanks to the innovative design by prominent Australian architectural studio, Bates Smart. The design embodies the spirit of Australia through direct references to its distinctive geography, with bright and clear natural light and open skies, creating a symbol of Australia that is both welcoming and enduring. The environmental focus of the embassy demonstrates Australia's global leadership in sustainable design, construction and products.
Dear friends, Brazil is the proud owner of an architectural gem in the nation's capital, the McCormick House, designed by celebrated American architect John Russell Pope. Join me to learn more about this neoclassical building of understated elegance, the official Brazilian residence in Washington, D.C. for almost a century. Next to our residence stands the building of our Chancery, designed by Brazilian architect Olavo Redigo de Campos in the international style. The two buildings, one next to the other, stand in stark contrast, and perhaps they represent two facets of Brazilian national character, the more traditional and the modern. Brazil's first representative to the United States was José Silvestre Rebelo. Upon his arrival in Washington in April 1824, he took up residence at the Franklin House Hotel, a large brick house with furnished rooms in Foggy Bottom, a few blocks from the White House. Demolished at the beginning of the 20th century, the Franklin House can be considered Brazil's first official diplomatic address in Washington. In 1934, Ambassador Oswaldo Aranha backed the decision for Brazil to acquire a permanent official residence in Washington, D.C. He was especially charmed by a house at the corner of Whitehaven Street and Massachusetts Avenue, put up for sale by the McCormick family. Though Oswaldo Aranha was criticized in the press for the acquisition of the building, he was convinced, and time would prove him right, that his decision was in the best interest of Brazil. The McCormick residence belonged originally to Robert Sanderson McCormick, who had served as U.S. ambassador to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Russia, and France. John Russell Pope, who designed the National Gallery of Art, the National Archives, and the Jefferson Memorial, received the commission for the architectural project and construction of the McCormick residence, which began in 1911. Pope sought inspiration in buildings of the Italian Renaissance. He especially admired the architect Baldassare Perluzzi, whose masterpiece, the Palazzo Massimo alle Colonne in Rome, with its entry colonnade, was a model for his work. Pope's design for the ground and first floor was intended to accommodate the McCormick's frequent social functions, while the third floor would be reserved for its private quarters. When entering the ground floor, one's eye is immediately drawn to a semicircular marble stairway. On this floor, we also find the Sala dos Índios, where we stand, the Hall of the Indian, where many embassy events like chamber music concerts and receptions take place. A lovely feature of this room is its wallpaper after paintings by the German naturalist Rogendas, who journeyed throughout Brazil in the 19th century. The Zuber factory in Alsace, France, created the woodwork printed paper to adorn the walls of this room, which originally housed Robert McCormick's library. The building's second floor contains the dining room, a hallway, a drawing room, and a salon, or ballroom. During official receptions, all of these spaces brim with guests who never fail to admire the residence's collection of Brazilian paintings by great masters such as De Cavalcanti, Eliseu Visconti, Portinari, Henrique Berardelli, and Antonio Parreira. Guests also express curiosity about the furniture which was purchased in Europe by Robert McCormick. Some of the pieces in the French Empire style of the early 19th century are rumored to have belonged to Joséphine de Beauharnais, the first wife of Napoleon. If you want to know more about John Russell Pope, I suggest Mastering Tradition, a book by James Garrison, published in 2004 by Anatos Press. This richly illustrated volume, a source of information for this video, is a very readable appraisal of his residential architecture. The next time you find yourself in Washington's Embassy Row, be sure to have a look at this remarkable building that Brazil cares for with zeal and affection. Thank you very much. See you soon.
The United States has no closer ally than the United Kingdom. Following the end of the American Revolution in 1783, the United Kingdom officially recognized American independence, and in 1785 our two countries established diplomatic relations. A portrait sculpture of British Prime Minister Winston Churchill by William M. McVeigh is installed outside the British Embassy in Washington, D.C. The U.S. established diplomatic relations with Cameroon in 1960, following the independence of the French-administered part of the country. Its nearly 27 million people speak 250 native languages, and English or French or both. Chile, one of the United States' strongest partners in Latin America, has maintained a robust democracy. In front of the Embassy of Chile is the bust of Bernardo O'Higgins Riquelme, a Chilean independence leader who freed Chile from Spanish rule in the Chilean War of Independence. The United States established diplomatic relations with Croatia in 1992 following its independence from Yugoslavia. Saint Jerome, one of the most important spiritual writers of the Western civilization, who translated the Bible into Latin language, died in 420 AD. In Croatia, there are as many as 64 churches and chapels bearing the name of this saint. Ivory Coast, also known as Côte d'Ivoire, officially the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, is a country on the southern coast of West Africa. The U.S. established diplomatic relations with Côte d'Ivoire in 1960, following their independence from France. Ghana is one of the leading exporters of cocoa in the world. It is also a significant exporter of commodities such as gold and lumber. Ghana has an estimated population of 30.8 million. There are more than 100 ethnic groups, each with its own unique language. English, however, is the official language, a legacy of British colonial rule. In 1957, Ghana, formerly known as the Gold Coast, became the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to gain independence. Greece was established as an independent country in 1832, after a long war for independence. The United States recognized the new Greek government in 1833. Eleftherios Kyriakou Venizelos was a Cretan Greek statesman and prominent leader of the Greek national liberation movement. He is noted for his contribution to the expansion of Greece and promotion of liberal democratic policies. He held office as Prime Minister of Greece for over 12 years, spanning 8 terms between 1910 and 1933. The Chancery of the Embassy of India consists of 2 adjacent buildings, one constructed in 1885, and the other, Depew House, in 1901, making them probably the oldest properties owned by the Government of India abroad. Mahatma Gandhi was an Indian lawyer, anti-colonial nationalist and political ethicist who employed nonviolent resistance to lead the successful campaign for India's independence from British rule. He inspired movements for civil rights and freedom across the world. The honorific Mahatma was first applied to him in South Africa in 1914, is now used throughout the world. Known by the alias Walsh McLean House and registered on the National Register of Historic Places, this mansion was built for the family of Thomas F. Walsh, an Irish-American multimillionaire who was one of the richest gold miners in the world at the time. On December 19, 1951, Dr. Ali Sastromojojo, Indonesia's first ambassador to the United States, purchased the Walsh McLean House on behalf of the Indonesian government to be used as the Indonesian embassy. The main grand stairway is located right in the middle of the building with the shape of the letter Y. It was designed to resemble the line of the ocean waves. This room was formerly known as the Louis XIV Salon Room, decorated in European style. Later the room was renamed the President's Room, where photographs of Indonesian presidents were displayed. The Garuda Room was previously called the Music Room, because it was equipped with a magnificent Baroque organ made of wood. In 1972, the Italian government purchased property from the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation that was part of the campus of the neighboring Center for Hellenic Studies. The new building was designed by Piero Sartogo and was completed in 2000. The Embassy of Japan was designed by the U.S. firm of Delano and Aldrich. Emperor Hirohito allegedly approved the design personally. The United States Commission of Fine Arts approved the design of the building on September 16, 1930. Erected in 1931, the building is in the Georgian Revival architectural style, with subtle elements of Japanese architecture. The Embassy of Luxembourg building was originally constructed for lumber baron and former Congressman Alexander Stewart in 1909. It was designed by Jules-Henri de Ciboure and built in the French style of Louis XIV. It was bought by the government of Luxembourg in 1962 and has been home to the embassy ever since. The Embassy of Peru is located in the Emily J. Wilkins House. Built in the Italian Renaissance revival, this lavish Beaux-Arts mansion served as a family home with a 16th-century Italian facade, Corinthian eaves, exposed brick, and arched doorways. In 1973, the Peruvian Chancery took over occupancy of the building and remains in residence today. In front of the Embassy of Peru is a bust of Miguel Maria Grau Seminario. He was the most renowned Peruvian naval officer and hero of the Battle of Angamas during the War of the Pacific between Peru and Chile. The Embassy of Romania is an excellent example of the Beaux-Arts style of architecture, so popular in Washington at that time. In 1907, Frank Ellis, a Manhattan attorney, commissioned the famous firm of Carrere and Hastings from New York to design a mansion on the corner of Sheridan Circle and 23rd Street, which was to become, in 1921, the Embassy of Romania. South Africa sent its first delegation to the United States in 1929 and became a formal embassy in 1949. The embassy buildings were built in 1936. The original portion now serves as the ambassadorial residence, and a new chancery wing was built next door in 1964. Both structures are in the Cape Dutch style, but with Indiana limestone instead of the traditional whitewashed plaster. Nelson Mandela was a South African anti-apartheid activist and politician who served as the first black president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. His government focused on dismantling the legacy of apartheid by fostering racial reconciliation. He served as the president of the African National Congress (ANC) from 1991 to 1997. Twin Oaks, a 26-room English Georgian Renaissance-style mansion situated on 18.24 acres in northwest Washington, was constructed in 1888. It originally served as the summer residence for Gardner Greene Hubbard, the founder of the National Geographic Society, who named the estate Twin Oaks after the two beautiful oak trees located in front of the house. The mansion also bears a historic connection to Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone, who was Mr. Hubbard's son-in-law. The building was constructed in 1955 and originally housed the American Association for the Advancement of Science. The structure was built with vertical louvers, or movable sunshades, made of aluminum. On May 17, 1956, the United States became the first major power to recognize the sovereignty of Tunisia, newly independent from France. The Tunisian government bought the embassy property in 1985. Kemal Ataturk was a soldier, statesman, and reformer who was the founder and first president of the Republic of Turkey. He modernized the country's legal and educational systems.